What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Media Goose channel. It is I, the Media Goose, your boy Ryan, and the goose is loose, baby. Ha! I am here today to finally start my MCU review. That's right, we are starting with Iron Man, and it ends with Doomsday. It begins and it ends with Robert Downey Jr. It's pretty poetic, honestly. I've shared my thoughts in my Doomsday video about Robert Downey, and I think with what happened with Jonathan Majors, this is a pivot that had to be made. Now, whether it was the right or wrong choice, we shall see, but let's go back to square one. Iron Man. So much rode on the shoulders of this movie. If this movie doesn't hit, are we in the build to Doomsday right now? Does the entire MCU happen in the way that we know it to have happened? I think it's possible it doesn't. A lot of universes have died based on the results of their first movie. The biggest example of that would be The Mummy. And I bring up The Mummy because the star of that film was Tom Cruise. And if the studio had their way, he may have also been Iron Man. The studio did not want to cast Robert Downey Jr. Jon Favreau, the director and the actor that played Happy Hogan, had to push for Robert Downey Jr. to get the role. And thank God he did, because I don't know where we are without Robert Downey Jr. I think all of the MCU was built on his shoulders. This movie, when it came out in 2008, I was the target demographic. I was an 8th grader. They hooked me at the age that ensured I would be one of their consumers through my adulthood. And they were right. I went to see like every movie in the MCU after that, so Iron Man hit for a lot of different reasons. For one, it doesn't lean into tropes of the superhero genre. In a lot of ways, this movie isn't a superhero movie. It's more grounded than that. It's funny because in the same year that Iron Man came out, The Dark Knight came out, and the Christopher Nolan Batman films are very much regarded as the peak of grounded storytelling. And I get that. They are fantastic. The Dark Knight's my favorite movie ever. I get it. But that's not the only way to do grounded. I really loved in Iron Man the way it started with Tony Stark's journey. At the very beginning of the movie, they tell you everything you need to know about Tony. The genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist we come to know. The first 15 minutes of the movie tell you everything you need to know about Tony Stark and who this character is. You see him skipping an award to go gamble, and you see him pick up a beautiful reporter and bring her home and have a one-night stand. You're really immediately getting introduced to this larger-than-life character. And that first 15 minutes, they're so important. The pacing are phenomenal because you are immediately brought into the world of Tony Stark and you see everything he is. And then the next 15 minutes are the most important 15 minutes of Tony Stark's life. The time in the cave, when he's with Jensen. Jensen, one of the best characters written in the MCU, and one of the most important characters in the MCU, because it is him who brings up the question of legacy to Tony. To me, the biggest through line of Tony's arc through the entire MCU is legacy, and his relation to his legacy. The way he inherited a legacy from his father, and when he gets back and shuts down weapons manufacturing, that is the first time he is doing something to create his own legacy. Not just piggyback on his father's legacy. Not just allow Obadiah to do what he needs to do to run the company. He decides to start taking agency in his legacy and his life. And that whole section, the return from home, is so important because it shows you all of the people that are closest in his life push back against Tony. Pepper, Obadiah, Rhodey. None of them are happy that Tony is trying to turn a new leaf. None of them seem to appreciate that he is making a choice for the first time on his own, not just based on what's best for the company, what's best for my father's legacy, what's best for the bottom line of the investors. Tony is making a choice for himself. Now, they bring up the fact that, is it fair for Tony to make that change to Stark Industries, remove the weapons manufacturing, or is that just him being selfish? And there's even a line where he's like, that's a new thing for me on behalf of the company. And Obadiah's like, ah. So this movie really shows you Tony Stark starting to make his own legacy, not piggybacking on his father's anymore, starting to do things the way he wants to. That time in that cave with Jensen, oh man, watching this movie back yesterday, I forgot just how powerful everything in that scene is. He brings out the humanity in Tony, Jensen does. Makes him face his own legacy. And he saves Tony. The last thing Tony says to Jensen is, thank you for saving me. And he didn't mean from that cave. I think he meant for saving his life. For putting him on the hero's path. And 30 minutes into the movie, and when he flies away, I had the thought of, like, you could have ended the movie there as a short, like a half-hour Tony Stark origin story, and it's perfect. And then I'm going to get into the characters in this. Obviously, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is what all of this is built on. He's incredible. Most of the dialogue is improvised. Apparently, a lot of the scenes, they had a framework, but they allowed the actors, primarily Robert Downey Jr., to improvise. And I think not only is that great for Robert Downey Jr., but it shows great direction by, Jesus, what's Happy Hogan's name? Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau, by trusting Robert Downey Jr. that he knew this character. By the balance of the tone in this movie is excellent, because you have Tony Stark, who is this playboy, this like wisecracking guy. Then you have all of the military complex and all of that going on. You have the terrorist aspect, prying on the fears of Americans in the post 9/11 world. You have Tony battling PTSD from his time in the cave. You have his call to action when he goes to save that town in Afghanistan. A town that until this rewatch, I never realized was Jensen's hometown. Crazy. So that call to action from, it's funny, from Christine Everhart, the same reporter he had that one night stand with earlier. She's the one who kind of pushes him into that call to action. And then before he can leave that party, Obadiah reveals that he's the real big bad. And now I'll talk about Obadiah Stane, performed by Jeff Bridges, one of the better actors alive. Obadiah Stane, I think, is a great villain, and a trope that he did so well. A lot of villains kind of followed this path. I thought the way Obadiah manipulates Tony through the relationship with his father, trying to guilt Tony essentially, was great. You can tell throughout the movie, even at the beginning, that Obadiah wants to control things, wants to control Tony's life. When he shows up after he returns, Obadiah's like, you're supposed to be at the hospital. There's a lot of hints throughout the movie that Obadiah is trying to kind of control the path that Tony walks down. And the entire final act of this movie I love, and it's so good that Iron Man served as a template that almost every origin story followed after this. And that's impressive when you consider Batman Begins came out 2 years before that, and that's like one of the best origin stories ever, and it didn't go, how do I put it? It didn't go as dark as Batman Begins. The tone, the nature of this movie really set the tone for the rest of the MCU. Some movies end up getting in their own way because they try to be funny, like this movie was. Guardians 2 wasn't funny, in my opinion. Thor 4 sucked because they tried too hard to be funny. I think Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau walked that line perfectly. And I talked about Obadiah Stane as the villain. I'm going to talk about now Pepper Potts. Pepper Potts is Tony's rock. Every interaction they have in this movie, Pepper really challenges Tony. She's one of the only characters who, in the entire universe, challenges Tony. And I think that's really important. You see the vulnerability in Tony every time they have a scene together. You see a different side of Tony. You see a real part of Tony come out in a really beautiful way. And I think Gwyneth Paltrow does an excellent job. She mentioned that the amount of improv, she never knew what was going to come out of Robert Downey Jr.'s mouth. And while that can be scary as an actor, I think sometimes you just have to let go and trust that you know the character you're performing, and she clearly did. And now Rhodey, maybe one of my hottest takes. I know that Terrence Howard is insane. I know that now. So maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's crazy how much better than Don Cheadle he is as Rhodey, in my opinion. I don't really like Don Cheadle's Rhodey much at all. I never have. I just never felt the connection between them like I felt between Rhodey and Tony in this movie. The scene when they're on the plane together at the beginning, and Rhodey is like trying to be the serious one, and Tony's bringing out a stripper pole. The fact that Rhodey's the person that finds Tony after he escapes the terrorists, it really shows you the emotional connection between the two. And I thought Terrence Howard did an incredible job. Apparently it came down to, in Iron Man 2, when Robert Downey got a massive raise, Terrence Howard also wanted a massive raise, and he didn't get it. And I think it suffered. I think the role suffered because of that. I think they really mishandled the role of Rhodey throughout the MCU, but the casting of Don Cheadle didn't help, in my opinion. I just didn't think he was a fit for the role. He's more of a classical actor, and I thought Rhodey, I liked how bro-y he felt with Tony. I liked the handling of the Ten Rings. Raza, the leader, I really liked him. I think, again, it was prying on the fears in America and that post-9/11 world of, it's in Afghanistan. I think they were leaning into a lot of that. And when I talked about the grounded nature of this, that side of it, I think, is really important, because some of the best stuff that the MCU ever does in terms of bringing drama and tension is with government agencies, and I think they did really great with that in here. Not government agencies, but the Ten Rings, I don't think they would have used the Ten Rings if they knew later what the Ten Rings would become. But regardless, I thought the actor that played Raza did wonderful. I really enjoyed his villain, his performance in this. This movie, every origin story after it copies it, and it tells you how good it is. This isn't just a good superhero movie. This is a good movie. And I think a lot of MCU movies that go wrong fall into the trap of not focusing on being a good movie first. They get into the world building, the universe building, the references. Make a good movie. In my Wonder Man review recently, I said that it was as good of an origin story as Iron Man. That's the kind of thing you want. That was also grounded. So I am just such a massive, massive fan of this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Robert Downey Jr., I think, deserved an Oscar for this. And I think the disrespect or the lack of respect that superhero movies always got from the awards circuit, this was the first movie to start to go the other way and start to kind of show you that superhero roles don't have to be a joke. Tony Stark is a fully thought out character. And in my opinion, the performance by Robert Downey Jr. deserved award recognition. And I think even in Endgame, I thought he could have gotten a Best Supporting Actor nomination from his scene returning from space alone. This is a top 3 MCU movie for me. One of my favorite movies of all time. And I can't wait to talk to you about the rest of the MCU. I can't wait to compare other movies to this, other origin stories, other Iron Man sequels to this, and just talk about how this movie started it all and all of the pressure that was on this movie and how it completely lived up to it. And how every movie after this was trying to live up to the standard that Iron Man set. Thank you guys for watching today. Let me know down below, what do you think of Iron Man? Iron Man is one of my 3 favorite MCU movies. I'm not going to tell you the other 2 yet. You're going to have to stick around and find out. Thank you guys for watching. The Goose is out. Ha!